Are you quite alright over there?
Yeah, it's fine.
Don't lie to me.
No, I'm dying.
Right over there?
Alright.
Oh, well.
Oh, I'm hearing echo. I'm hearing echo. That's not
Don't
good.
lie to me. Echo, echo, echo.
Alright, now everything fine, hope. Eventually. Someday. Alright, yeah, welcome everyone to episode 73 of Cast and Shadows. As usual, we'll start with the Star Citizen stuff. Did you see Inside Star Citizen this week or no? Or last week?
Nope.
It's pretty much actually a lot of what we covered last week's episode, but it's just they gave us visuals for it. You know, reclaimer derelicts, and actually how they're using the older models for the reclaimers. So those like legacy, outdated ship models can find a second life in the game through the wrecks, right? To make them feel like they were older by using the old tech. I thought that was neat. They showed off pretty much a lot of the wrecks. Stuff on this. People watching can.
Bullet.
This talked about how foliage and this that all the stuff you'd expect from a planet-side wreck, and they did say that some of the wrecks would also be in space. So be on the lookout.
If I remember right too, and I don't remember if this was this week, last week, something else. But I thought I remember hearing about something to where random asteroids would be like hollowed out or have a base on them or a wreck or something.
I heard about that too. As far as I'm aware, I only saw it in Discord.
Okay.
I haven't heard anything official on it.
Up.
But yeah, it's probably if anything, we'll probably hear maybe something about it this week. Which reminds me, this week in Star Citizen, obviously, Monday is this week in Star Citizen. Tuesday's the Galactopedia update, which is otherwise known as lore drops. Every Tuesday's a lore drop. Wednesday we got the 3.17.2 patch watch post. Thursday's Inside Star Citizen and the dynamic event kickoff. And then Friday we got a Star Citizen Live weekly newsletter and subscriber vault update, which I actually have an image of the subscriber vault. I think. Oh, here it is. No, wait, this is the jump point.
Oh no. Blame Canada.
And the jump point just talks a lot about behind the scenes stuff for the mule. Oh, here it is. But also inside Star Citizen, they talked about the Siege of Orison event, making the play space of the event. So taking Orison and kind of just adding that flashing art style of here's a nice city in ruins type thing, or slowly becoming ruins. And they also wanted to use it as a way to show off new elements of the city that we would not have otherwise been able to see in the main area due to limitations at the moment. And they talk about why they moved it so far away for performance reasons and all that stuff. So it's pretty much a lot of stuff we already knew, but behind the scenes on how that stuff came to be, which I thought was pretty. They're actually showing off some more areas of the play space that I did not see in my initial explorations. But then again, I was on foot, and they're doing wide panning shots because they have full control of the engine. Yep, that's gonna be it for now. Hold on. Star Citizen stuff. I'll be right back.
Bye, don't die. He's dead. What a shame. Sometimes I can still hear his voice.
I am undead.
I knew it.
Yep. Okay. That was really it. The Star Citizen news was kind of light this. Oh, here's that update about the asteroid facilities. I found it. Adding new asteroid facilities to the persistent universe, handcrafted traversable areas offering different gameplay opportunities, both in the interior and the exterior of the asteroids. This deliverable has been added to the EU Sandbox 1 team schedule, added to the roadmap. So that's what we're referring to. And obviously, we covered this last week, but the Colonial Outpost, the Derelict, the Colonial Outpost Derelict, like the ruined versions of them, added in the next patch, along with AI dropships and reinforcements at said outposts. Should be fun. That's really it for the Star Citizen news.
Yep.
On then.
Where?
Oh, to just everyone's favorite topic and the one that's on the title and in the thumbnail. It's bad enough that we have to limit ourselves to once a month with the Activision Blizzard news, just because there's always so much going on. And we also like to let the news marinate a bit so that we're not just reacting to it, but reporting on it, giving commentary, I suppose. This happens, and whatever.
Surprise, bitches.
So, since the last time we covered, previously on whatever the fuck this is,
Dragon Ball Z. Shit, we're canceled.
We talked about so what we missed was they had that diversity tool. We never talked about that on the show. So for those who don't know, Activision Blizzard had this diversity tool in which they used it for creating their characters. Essentially, it was like this. And when I say diversity, it's not like actual diversity, like, oh, diversity in levels. We have a lava level and a desert level. No, like your typical buzzword your misuse of the word by corporations like Disney and Activision. So yeah, they had this tool, and it's a very scummy tool. To our surprise. Bring it up here. Can't dance while I'm. This tool is it started in 2016, according to this post. This is on Activision Blizzard's website. It's called the King's Diversity Space Tool. Let me put it this way, it's par for the course in the entertainment industry for this sort of shit. It's not surprising, but it is disappointing. And a little bit of a bigotry. See, this tool essentially was like, okay, white characters sell more, so we have to make the character. Essentially, it was this horrible. Here, how the tool works. The idea of the tool to make characters more diverse and inclusive may seem a little hard to wrap your head around. In practice, it has to be more than just, say, a pop-up reminder that between 2017 and 2021, nearly 80% of the highest-selling games in the world featured white male protagonists, according to a study conducted by Diamond Lobby. Yeah, I don't trust this. It needs to become a part of the incubation process from the start, baked into the pipeline as an unmissable and consistent step, which is exactly what this tool is designed to be. The Diversity Space Tool is a measurable device to help identify how diverse a set of character traits are in turn, how diverse that character and casts are when compared to the norm. It's
What's the norm?
I don't know, but it's funny. I heard Legacy Killa in one of his videos recently mentioned something about how these video game companies are also corporations. But to me, I've always just seen them as corporations, and that's especially more so the case in modern day because they're making games by committee now. It's not an artist, and a writer, and a bunch of coders. It's there's statistics and committees, and it's all done by the numbers, done by the books, cookie cutter if they can, and so they can copy and paste it and make it modular so they can reshape it when need be. That's the unfortunate reality.
Too often, it really seems that for all the talk of companies, corporations, and individuals in these companies, of inclusion, of diversity, really, to really no one's surprise, all too often, it really seems like it's just a cover or smokescreen for them being sexist, being racist, being bigots of one kind or another. Well, they can go, essentially going, but I've got a black friend, see? Kind of bullshit.
Yeah.
I mean, is it really surprising that a lot of these game companies, Activision, Blizzard, ranking high amongst them, have ongoing large-scale sexual harassment lawsuits in place currently? And these are the people that say, no, trust us, we get diversity, we're all about this shit. While these same people are going and sexually harassing not even just the community or random people, but their own employees. Somehow I find it a little hard to believe that they should be considered a subject matter expert on this in any way, shape, or form.
It's also funny because didn't Call of Duty, we covered this a while back, but didn't Call of Duty use steal a character art from some ex-WWE guy's book, and then they sued Activision Blizzard for stealing their copyrighted cover art, to which they lost because of, Activision Blizzard have a shit ton of money and were able to outlast them.
Yep.
Also, in technicality bullshit, because again, you have the more money, you can have the more expensive legal team, and you can outlast them. This whole thing is kind of a little. It's not kinda. It's a lot of sense, but so yeah, the tool. Axios did a report on the tool back in May, and they have a little diagram here too. Like here's the diversity space method, and you have this graph and images of their existing characters and where they fall on the graph. I love how sexual orientation, because these are all, I think, Overwatch characters, right?
Yep.
Okay, because I've played Overwatch once, and I know that there's it's a hero shooter. That's the whole gimmick there. But why would sexual orientation matter in a hero shooter?
Because everything.
Or gender identity, or anything that, because I can see why culture or ethnicity or age or whatever would matter, because this way age would determine if he has a big bushy beard or whatever, stuff like that. But
I don't know what it really is, and realistically, what I think, at least in part, some of it boils down to now, is there probably a part of it which is actually wholeheartedly actually trying to go and be representative of people who have not had representation for a while? Sure. I'll say that's like 10% of it, because guarantee, again, this is a mega corporation. They don't really care about you, me, or anyone else. They care about making money. What realistically, I would say a good chunk of it is diversion. And what do I mean by that? I think anyone who has played games from 10, 15 years ago and played games nowadays will notice that besides graphics, obviously graphic quality of games has improved. No arguments there. But I would say that in nearly every other manner here, game quality has only gone down in the last 10 to 15 years in terms of story writing,
Yeah.
in terms of the environments we see, in terms of the characters we get, diversity of them or otherwise. In pretty much all other categories here, I would argue we're barely improving, if not improving at all, or in many more cases, we're sliding backwards in terms of
Yeah, I
quality.
mean, I've been saying it for a while, right? We're getting all the time. We're getting more of the same. The same is less.
Yes. Now that being said, why do I say it's a diversion? Because I mean, for example, Activision Blizzard, and we'll assume for the sake of argument that this is an actual tool that they are internally using to go and develop their characters. Now, if I remember right, though, they did this whole little post about this thing, hey, world, here's the news from Activision Blizzard. Here's this great tool we have to show how diverse we are. Woo, here, look at it.
Yeah, I
Oh,
think
isn't it cool?
this was that post. This is on their website.
Yes.
So
And if I remember right, didn't some of their own devs go out and say, hey, what the fuck is this idiot talking about? We've never seen or heard or
and
used this.
that's and
So they made a claim, this is a tool we use to make sure our characters are diverse. The actual devs never heard of this fucking thing in our lives. So one, they're, if not lying, let's just be generous here and I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. Obviously, not all their devs are using this because several of them came out and said, we've never heard of this thing before. But two, so again, we'll just, for the sake of argument, we'll assume they actually are using this as a tool that is used internally. Okay, why go and tell your community manager to go and hey, grab some screenshots from this tool we use and go make a blog post about this on Twitter or Facebook or whatever the fuck? Because then they can go and say, well, hey, people go, hey, here's, I mean, for example, Overwatch 2. If I remember right, Overwatch 2 is out, and by and large, it came out with a bit of a fucking whimper. People saw this thing,
is
they
it
played
out
it, and they're
already?
like, yeah, this is. I thought it was. I'm
I
pretty
didn't even
sure
know
it
it
is.
was out. All I know is that I heard we'll cover this. Bring it up now a bit, but
But by and large,
continue, yeah.
it kind of popped out with a bit of a fucking whimper, right?
Yeah.
And people go, hey, how come? As noted, like I said, at least for I would say my generation here, we're going, hey, game quality is getting worse and fucking worse and worse.
Yeah.
And
You're not
all
from
you
the
have
same
to get are all
generation.
these excuses as to why they can't possibly go and not make a game riddled with microtransactions or make a game that actually has decent fucking writing to it. And in this case, I think one of the go-to excuses is, well, we had to make sure it was properly diverse and all this stuff. Look at this tool we have to make sure we're diverse enough. How can we possibly write the story without having diverse characters? And it's like, sure, but the thing of it is, we've had diverse stories before. We've had great storytelling before. I mean, for example, let's take and we'll go with an RPG here. Let's take Mass Effect, for example. And in Mass Effect, I would argue that for the most part, you have a pretty good story across the three games they had there with decent, diverse characters of all different kinds of creeds and religions and ideas and philosophies and stuff. And throughout all of that, it doesn't matter whether your character, Commander Shepard of the Alliance military, whether they're male or female, or you could even say trans, whether they're black or white or anything else. What matters is their actions. And you can have a character that you could have a black female shepherd, you could have a male white shepherd, or a Indian female shepherd, whatever version of that you want. You can go and make that as your character, and it doesn't impact the story of it because the story isn't going, well, it's not about what race Commander Shepard is, besides the fact that you're a human. And that does play into some things too. Now there are characters here, you'll be like, "What are you doing here, human?" And it's like, "Oh, I guess I'm not too welcome here." Okay, kind of shit. But
Right, but they use
it
it to
doesn't matter
set
whether you're a
a
male human or a
yeah.
female human or a black human or a white human or whatever. It doesn't matter that you're human in this case. So it's like I do not accept the preemptive excuses, and yeah, we've seen this in pretty much all of the so-called AAA game companies these days.
It's not even just
We're getting
gaming;
peddled
it's
shit.
just across the entertainment industry as the across the board. That's why
Oh,
I
it
said
is.
it's par for the course of this entertainment industry. It is. You see it.
Oh,
We've been
it is.
seeing it for 8+ years, at least, in in every movie and TV show and comic books, especially, and in games
I
too.
mean, look at, for example, Cyberpunk.
Yeah.
There's another one. Now, obviously, Cyberpunk flopped pretty badly because of all kinds of performance issues that it had on the various systems it released on. But at the same point, too, I mean, for example, person went and asked, hey, you appear to have trans characters in your media here. Okay, can the player play as trans? And apparently, they go and work and make it. So yeah, the player can be trans. But ultimately, because of the story being told, it doesn't matter if your character is male, female, trans, whatever, black, white. That's not what the story is about. And I should note here, because we always have to have caveats these days. If you want to go and, if you're writing a story and you want the story to go and ride on things like, hey, the character's female, and because they're female, they're going to go and encounter things that they wouldn't if this was a male character, but because we're writing the character as female, they are. Or, hey, the character is Indian, and because they're Indian, as opposed to being black or white or Russian or Chinese or whatever else, they're going to encounter these things that they wouldn't if they weren't Indian, or whatever the case might be. You can absolutely write a story like that. Just bear in mind, you should probably try to make sure you write a good story. I mean, you can write good stories that don't ride on your character being a specific minority or checkbox, for example. Let's say like, I want to write a story, and I want to write a story about someone who has a huge injury that's an impactful part of their life. Okay. Doesn't matter if they lost an arm, a leg, an eye, they have hearing, if they've lost one,
Like, let's take the character.
on
To make it easier, let's
parts
take
of
the
their
character
body.
Barbara Gordon, right? Oracle from the
Yeah.
comics of Batman. She
But it's
was
you
Batgirl.
can write stories
She got
that
shot
do it well.
by Joker, and then she was paralyzed, became Oracle. Like, she didn't let the injury define her. She didn't let the injury essentially kick her down. She said, "No, I'm still able to do things. Yes, I can't walk anymore, but it doesn't mean I'm
I'm not
dead."
running on rooftops with Batman anymore, but that doesn't mean now that that's it, game over, my life is done.
Major asset, even joined the Justice League. Like, she went farther as Oracle than she ever did as Batgirl. And that was like the true hero story there.
But I would just say that with so many of these stories and the writing that we get these days, we don't get very often good writing, by which to say getting a character as opposed to caricatures, especially when we're talking about minority or smaller groups here that haven't had much representation. I mean, for example, in terms of disabilities, Hawkeye, he's gotten, if I remember, he has near total or a complete total hearing loss without use of special hearing aids. And even then, it's only giving him partial hearing again. It's not as good as if he were, regular with undamaged ears.
Right. Or say a character like Daredevil who was blind, or
Well, honestly, that's probably a better example there. No, I will.
although he
say,
has
though,
kind of powers that allow him to
power,
see, so yeah.
Yeah, I mean, with Daredevil's power, it's like, yeah, he's blind, but not really, kind of thing. But like with Hawkeye, for example, I mean, in the comics, it gets brought up at several points here that, hey, he has hearing loss. Like, he'll ask people to go and say things again. He'll kind of go like, I'm sorry, you were way over there. I couldn't understand you. I couldn't hear you, kind of stuff. It shows him using sign language, if I remember a couple of issues. I mean, that stuff. Now, also too, there's a good way and a bad way to go and do that. I mean, for example, if Hawkeye were to go up, let's say if he's, he just got done taking care of a bad guy that just finished up all the paperwork, and he's like, man, I'm kind of hungry. So he goes over to a hot dog vendor, and he starts going and throwing sign language at the hot dog vendor. The vendor's like,
He's going to
sorry,
become.
man, I don't speak sign language. And then if Hawkeye were to go and get pissed off and walk off in a huff that this fucker doesn't know sign language, he'd be like, what the fuck? That would be bad representation. Yes, it's showing. Now, that's not to say that a scene like that couldn't be written well still, but just as that is, to where he just randomly approaches some random person, expects them to know sign language, because that's bad writing. Or at least that's a bad character. Now, you could still write the situation well, but on the face of it, that's bad writing. If you expect to play it straight and act like Hawkeye is in the right for expecting some random person to know sign language, or for example, let's say if you were to go and walk up to some random person and expect them to know Braille, right? Why would they? It's like unrealistic expectations, or...
Well, it's the problem stems to the whole, you think the world revolves around you and everyone should accommodate for you,
Yes.
and not just live in reality. Not everyone's going to accommodate for you, just like you don't accommodate for everyone else.
Lives as best they can for whoever you are as an individual. Because I mean, that's really what it is. We're all trying to live our lives, every single one of us. We're all trying to live our lives as best we can with whatever circumstances, whatever handicaps or advantages that we have. We're all just trying to make it day by day through this wacky thing called life. And yeah, some people are going to have advantages. Some people are going to have disadvantages, or heavy disadvantages that other people don't. But at the same point, expecting that everything is going to shift around you. I mean, there's a reason we call people who act like that in retail stores and stuff, we call them Karens. Because they're, I want to speak to the manager because you won't accept me returning this item even though I clearly did not buy the item here and I don't have a receipt. Well, yeah, that's unrealistic.
If I had to psychoanalyze them, I'd say they feel that life owes them something, even though they're clearly on the better side of the life stick in regards to how well off they are. But usually, I guess spoiled brat would be the proper term. But moving back to the Activision Blizzard thing, so yeah, Activision Blizzard unveiled this new I say new software program, but a few years old, clearly, or supposedly a few years old, and this was from last month, but it was meant to increase diversity in the casts of video games, and has been a textbook example of what not to do. Because, well, it's pretty much how to make a diverse character by making stereotypical, very, just, your typical entertainment character right now. Your caricature, as you were saying.
Stereotypes,
these
when
are just
taken seriously. Stereotypes are somewhat insulting.
Right.
I mean, if you were to go and say, every single person who's Irish must be drunk all the time, or have a drinking problem and must be short.
Or every Jew must be some rich diamond merchant or some money grubbing schmuck. Yeah, no, it's.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely offensive, and it doesn't matter where or how or to who you apply it. Now, again, in very, 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 very broad strokes, sure. I mean, because all a stereotype is it's going and saying, hey, it would seem from information at hand that somewhat likely X happens, or due to X, Y happens, which. Okay, and you can take that into whatever personal calculations you do. If you're going, hey, I'm going to visit someplace. Hey, I'm going to visit Germany. I want to make sure I visit a German chocolate place because their chocolate is good. Is that a stereotype? Yes, it is. Now, is that necessarily a bad stereotype? Well, not really. Now, if you go in and go, you buy some chocolate from a German chocolate place and you go, man, this is shit. The chocolate back in Mexico was so much better than this, and no, at that point you're acting like a spoiled brat.
At that point, you're making a mountain out of a molehill. Yeah. But yeah, the whole thing was the publisher announced this diversity space tool. We just talked a little bit about it, but it was supposed to be a leap forward for inclusion in gaming. But by Friday evening of the Thursday that this was announced back in May, it had Activision Blizzard scrubbed the words "a leap forward in inclusion for inclusion in gaming" and more from its online announcement as developers from the company began slamming it. The tool starts users with a blank graph, asks them to establish a norm in the middle for a character in a given game genre, and has them plot out how different a given character is. It will create a larger shape for a character who is, say, non-white, queer, or has a disability. Activision framed it as a method for avoiding tokenism, stereotypes, and exclusion, and described enthusiastic reactions from its Call of Duty and Overwatch development team. It called the tool tangible software that would create and monitor guidelines for character conception and creation. But the announcement, which included an image of the tool that showed numerical values added to characters' ethnicity and sexuality, drew backlash online and across games media. It was labeled mildly dystopian, creepy, and a glorified Dungeons & Dragons character sheet that makes no sense. Two Overwatch designers tweeted that they hadn't used or seen the tool before, and the references in Activision's announcement to the team praising the tool were removed. One quote being, "God, I swear our own company tries so hard to slaughter any goodwill the actual devs who make the game have built," wrote Activision character artist Melissa Kelly in a tweet that went viral. "You know what drives our diversity," she added. "The devs. We have people who work on the game from these cultures. That's it. That's literally it." Yeah, so
Right.
because here's the thing, like they're saying, like, oh, this is to avoid stereotypes and tokenism, but you see the tool, you see how it's structured, you see the instructions that the tool gives you here, and it's like this is how you create. This is a nonsensical, like triple looped, all wired tangled version way of creating a stereotype tokenistic character.
And that's really and that's the biggest problem with a lot of this stuff, because it's like if you want to go and hey, we're building a group of characters for a game, a story, whatever. Hey, we want to go and have a majority, all some Black people, Indian people, men, women, people who have physical disabilities, people who have mental disabilities. Sure, absolutely, go for it. Make this stuff so that it is somewhat normalized here. But bear in mind, the way you do it matters. I mean, when you literally just have one character have black skin, just for the sake of them having black skin, going, hey, I've got a black friend, see? I mean, that's literally what you're doing. And when you're going out of your way to do that, that's racist. If you're going, hey, we've written this story, we've got it all down. Oh no, we don't have enough trans people in the story here, and you make someone trans for the sake of being trans, that's sexist or homophobic or whatever the fuck the term is these days.
Yeah. The point is,
But
it's
literally,
their
because
attempt
you are
to fight.
doing it solely to go and say, we gotta go and have this.
This is the same
for
thing
no
that we've been
other
saying
reason.
in all of our like comic book related videos way back, a year ago now, and years before that too. It's like this is their attempt to quote unquote fight bigotry is by bigotry and creating bigotry as a result. Because think about it, how many times, and I'm just asking proverbial, like not you, but like any viewers watching, whether it's on the rerun, type in the comments later or whatever, but how many times have you seen an announcement or a trailer or something for a movie or a game or whatever it is, and you see, and say it's made by, it's a EA thing or a Disney thing or whatever, or even if it's not Disney, but it's a big name that still you don't trust, and the trailer has, a black character in it or gay character, whatever it is, all of a sudden you're like skeptical of this is going to be good or not because it might have politically correct, identity politics shoved up its ass.
Well, for example,
And the problem is they've built that
example.
skepticism. They've created the very thing they claim to be fighting. So
But
yeah,
for
nice
example,
going there. Behavioral modification, folks.
Recent example of this would be, and correct me if I'm wrong here, man, because I don't follow comic book news as much as you do here. But if I am correct, there was recently unveiled a new Black Thor. Correct?
Yes.
And from what I understand, Marvel Comics has been drawing some decent backlash here because they're having this Black Thor act very stereotypically.
The reason it is Miles, it's a what if Miles Morales became Black Thor? I was supposed to say Black Thor. And yeah, it's very like, you know, Asgard in the hood or something like that. Like you see Mjolnir has graffiti all over it. It's
Oh, and it's like, it's insulting because at this point we're now using a negative stereotype and saying, well, of course, if now not just Thor, but we're saying if Miles Morales had the power of Thor, well, he's immediately going to go and graffiti stuff because that's what black people do. So says the Marvel writers. That's racist.
yes, it is.
That's blatantly racist.
But then again, this is coming from the same company that created Safe Space and the Internet Gas.
Oh, fucking hell!
Do you remember the New Weirdos? My God, making that video
immediately got canned.
It got canned. It got canned due to COVID. That's what they're saying. However,
yeah, that's the claim.
It was made before COVID hit America hard, so that's a load of shit. Man, making that video, making the video, the rant on that thing was so much fun.
But just, I mean, this kind of shit is blatantly racist. At least for the original and, dare I say it, true definition of racism. And you are either going and either negatively or positively, but you are in some way judging a person solely based on their race, of what their actions, their personality would be. It's racist.
I can pull out Webster's dictionary if you want. We can go through the definition. But I'm pretty sure I memorized it, and it's pretty much hostile whatever towards any specific race or group of people. So it's prejudice against any race. Doesn't matter what race, doesn't matter what group of people. Obviously it doesn't
matter who it's towards or against.
So this whole anti-racism movement that
groups.
Like, remember Disney's employee training manual we got our hands on with the.
Or wait, are you thinking of Coca-Cola's where they said?
No, this is the Disney one that we covered because we didn't cover the Coca-Cola one, I don't think. But
I thought we did. No, were they literally told their employees to be less white?
Oh yeah, we did. No, but we got our hands on the this full thing for Disney. Remember where the anti-racism thing?
Mm-hmm.
Where it was like, you have to ask people about their experience. You can't feel whatever. You're not allowed to do this because you're white. You're not allowed to do, all this like white privilege bullshit. It's like anti-racist. I say anti-racist this. You have to be anti-racist because it's not just don't be racist. It's you have to be anti-racist, which just translates to be racist against white people. Because that's okay.
And again, these are the same organizations, the same people that will tell you that they are moral authorities. Bear in mind, again, so we've already established at least pretty well that they're racist. We're already seeing the ongoing lawsuits for sexual harassment. So they're racist, they're sexist, and these are the organizations that are telling you that they are a moral authority on what you should and shouldn't believe. You should kowtow to what they say this stuff is and isn't. Yeah, just saying, if I had like some crazy uncle that had lawsuits for sexual harassment and who had said racist shit in the past, and they're telling me that they're a moral authority on this stuff, I'm not too fucking likely to believe them. That's just me. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy.
No, I think that's the two of us here, but yeah, that's. Look, when you and I were growing up, this shit, this shit was racist. This shit was bigotry. And what?
I just said this shit wouldn't have flied.
No, it wouldn't have.
Back then.
No.
But nowadays, it is widely accepted publicly to be racist, to be sexist, as long as you do it against approved groups, which very often is white men, Christians.
Was it cis
You
white
have
male or
approved
something like
groups
that?
hate on.
Cis
Yeah.
white heterosexual male. That's the
Yep.
terminology, right?
Yeah.
That they're using around kids these
again,
days.
because we always have to have qualifiers here, because it's 2022 here. I'm not saying that in some ways some people haven't drawn ire for being white. I'm not saying that there aren't white racists. I'm not saying that there aren't men who are sexist. There absolutely are. I'm not saying that there aren't Christians who go, I mean, shit, look at the Westboro Baptist Church. A more horrible group of people these days you'd be hard to find outside of Russia. But yeah.
Did you try Jersey? Okay.
Not saying that there isn't some deserved hate for some small groups of people, but to try to categorically say, well, all men, all whites, all cis, all etc. are bad, evil, whatever. You are being the very thing that you claim to be against.
Right.
And at that point, you're just hypocritical and saying, well, I just don't want them to target
Well,
me.
that's the thing, is that they are giant hypocrites and bigots. And it's funny how, like, the whole mentality of, not just, at this point, it's everywhere, not even just entertainment anymore, but where it's like, if you're white, you have to pay for the sins of history, right? Because your ancestors, whatever, owned slaves. And I love how that's like the thing. You have to feel bad, right? The white privilege and all that bullshit.
Yes, the guilt.
And yes, the guilt, the white guilt. And I'm just like, what the fuck you want about? I'm first generation American. My family from Russia and fucking Poland. Like, where are you getting this shit?
Well, it doesn't matter. I'm sure your people did something bad at some point.
I mean, yeah, my people are the Jews, so yeah, we've always done something bad according to someone.
Yeah. Ever since ancient times, yeah, it's kind of been this recurring theme.
Now, just yesterday in the Morning Post, I saw that there was a freaking what's face swastika spray painted on some sign next to the words Gambino and 187, which is a number sign for death or something. It's like, that's always swell. But yeah, it's just insane that we have and the whole this is becoming dystopian, whatever. Like, yeah, because as I said, again, we're talking about, back to the topic, I guess. Like, we're talking about a company that's supposed to be making escapism, supposed to be crafting characters and stories and making fun interactive experiences in the form of games. That is their product. But they've gone from being artists that
I want to get preached, I'd go to church. Right?
But now it's, instead of being artists making a art form, you have shallow, the soulless corporation that's just doing things by the. It's like, that's what this is. It's unfortunate, is the reality. But then again, the reality is a dystopian cyberpunk future without all the cool stuff. So.
Yeah, darn it.
I know, right? Hell, all that cool stuff would allow people to actually, the whole the gender affirmation stuff, like you want to switch genders or whatever. All that cool shit from, cyberpunk stories would allow you to do that and switch on the fly, no problems, right? You can do it in cyberpunk, you can do it in Deus Ex, you can do it whatever, so.
I blame Canada.
Had it too good for too long, they're also not real.
Damn fucking right.
So yeah, between the lines, one of the early architects of the tool says it was not meant to put a score on diversity or replace common sense. That's right, because there was a score related to how diverse your character was, because that's common sense.
Well, also too, I mean, I remember other groups that have gone and put scores on things like race, gender, and sexuality. It usually doesn't end very well for any of the people.
Any type of categorization, and segregation leads to problems. Anytime.
Go figure, huh?
Yeah, right.
But don't worry. This time, I'm sure.
That's right. It's like when everyone says, "Oh no, socialism hasn't been done correctly yet. That's why we need to try it." It's like,
we just need to.
No. Venezuela was a good example of why socialism doesn't work.
But I thought 5 years ago you said it was an example of why it does work.
Yeah, so when developers are making a character game, it's not supposed to replace common sense. Yet kind of does. And
Commentators
I love
do.
how, as I described earlier, it's supposed to be this like cross-wired, jumbled up, very confusing way to create stereotypes, and that's done purposely. As per my behavioral modification theory, you make things confusing so that when people do it, they don't realize they're doing something bad, and then you get them into that system that way, right? Like the reason why video game menu UIs lately, of the last 10 years or so, have been getting progressively more and more messy and confusing and colorful, as opposed to just a simplistic, campaign, multiplayer, options, whatever, exit game that you'd normally have in old school menus. Now you have all these different menus with different options to essentially just bug the fuck out of the player and confuse them and make them click on something accidentally. It sounds stupid, but that is why they're designed that way. Enlisted is probably one of the worst, or it's the best example of the worst example of these menu UIs.
Detailed.
The idea, so here, the bulletin from Axios saying, the idea was to slow down time a little bit and have a little bit more discussion and reflection at that crucial point of creation. MIT Game Lab Research Coordinator Mikhail? I'm not good at pronouncing names.
Mikhail?
Jacobson tells Axios, the project had started several years ago at Swedish mobile studio King by developers who were inspired by a presentation from Anita Sarkeesian, a prominent cultural critic who regularly speaks against stereotypes in game characters. The King designers created a paper prototype for graphing a character's diversity, presented it at the Game Developers Conference in 2017, and tapped MIT to help make a digital version that could eventually be used by game makers around the world. Jacobson's involvement with the project ended in 2019 when MIT gave the studio a workable version. The vision, he said, was to offer it as part of a workshop alongside readings and to avoid putting stats on character traits, lest it reduces efforts for diversity to a numbers game. He lost track of the tool over the last few years and assumed it had been scuttled. Last spring, however, long before showcasing it to the public, Activision mentioned it in a message to shareholders as a top bullet point for its efforts tied to diversity, equity, and inclusion. Those are, by the way, those along with representation and that really is whatever, like representation, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Those are like the favored buzzwords by all these companies. They all use it. And they all misuse every single one of those when they're named. Words. Terms. That was what terms was the word I was looking for. Yeah, that's just a tool thing, and it's a doozy. Not really, but it just, again, it's par for the course in the entertainment industry as a whole, like not just games, but everything. And it sucks that is the case.